We heard some from Anne-Marie Trevelyan there about what is happening in Westminster. I mean, what is going on with some of these parliamentarians that this behaviour is still going on after all this time?
Well, I want to begin by apologising for my IT problems here in the,
no problem
in the age of Zoom. You think we'd have all mastered it by now, but to come to your question, I think it's been a bad week for politics. These things seem out of time, and women today, whether it's in politics or journalism or any other workplace, are clearly not going to put up with the kind of language and behaviour that we've seen this week, or that we might have seen years and decades ago. And if I had one conclusion from the whole thing, it's that all of this just seems out of time with the age we're living in. It's 2022. It's not sometime decades ago. So these behaviours do no good for politics. And that matters because this is the arena whereby the nation has to work out its problems. That's what politics is for, whether that's on the cost of living crisis or our attitude to the war in Ukraine or any other major question.
I mean, Pat McFadden, you've been in Parliament now since about 2005. It's quite a long run there. Have you seen inappropriate behaviour in the House of Parliament?
I personally haven't, but of course, these reports are there for all to see. And people are there. We're there to represent our constituents. We're there to do the best job we can. And I still think, despite all the awful reports of things that we've seen over the past few days, most people who come into politics do it for good reasons. They do it for public service. They do it because they want to serve their country and serve their constituents. And that's really important, as I say, because if we conclude from all this that it's all simply a nest of rogues and bullies and, maybe even worse, then that's really bad for our democracy. So we're not asking for sainthood in politics, but we are asking for proper professional behaviour. And some of the instances that we've seen over the past week clearly fall short of that standard.
I mean, there are some rules, of course, in place, and there are procedures to deal with this sort of thing. Are they just simply not strong enough?
Well, I think your viewers will feel we've heard all this before about rules and procedures, and they have been changed in recent years. And, I believe that the Speaker is serious about this and making it a good place and a safe place for people to work and a place where people can raise things. But it doesn't look so far like the changes of recent years have fully dealt with the problem. If it had, then you wouldn't be seeing the reports that we've seen over the past week.
OK, let's just move on slightly if we can. You will have seen some of the reporting for the past day or so about the leader of your party, Sir Keir Starmer, and those allegations that he broke lockdown rules up in Durham. I mean, no equivalence with what's happened in Downing Street and Whitehall, of course, but if Mr Starmer is found to have broken the rules and is fined, should he resign?
Well, the police have already looked at this in Durham and they've found nothing to take action on. And, people are trying to draw some equivalence to this, but the police have already looked at it and that's been their conclusion. And I simply don't believe that this is equivalent in any way to a series of parties, bring your own booze being brought in by the suitcase with ABBA singing "Winner Takes All" in the background. And the attempt to draw equivalence is to try to. It's all this, they want people to think it's all the same, so no scandal matters. And that's a bad place for us to go.
Sorry, I did make it very clear. I'm not trying to draw an equivalence at all. What I'm simply saying is that the Labour Party have said that Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak should resign if they're found to have broken the rules and have been fined. I'm saying that if it does transpire that Sir Keir Starmer or Angela or anyone else, for that matter, in the Labour Party has broken the rules and is fined, should they resign?
Well, that situation hasn't arisen because the Durham police have looked at this and found that no rules were broken. So that doesn't arise in this case.
And if it did, just finally?
Well, but it hasn't, and it doesn't.
OK, you refuse. Fine, refuse to go on that. I perfectly understand. Let's move on a little bit, if we can, then, to the situation that the country is facing. You will have, of course, seen reporting that the Chancellor of the Exchequer is suggesting now a windfall tax be brought in. That's something the Labour Party have been calling for, hasn't it?
Yes, it is something we've been calling for, and for good reason. The cost of living crisis is really hurting families. We've called for this for about 4 months now in order to get extra help, particularly to people in the lowest incomes with these rocketing energy bills. And today is the first day that people will see the Tory tax rises in their payslips as well as we come to the end of April. And the Chancellor has so far steadfastly ruled out taking this action. I hope he does reconsider. And if he does, it will be an admission that the spring statement that he gave a few weeks ago fell far short of the scale of the challenge and the scale of help that people need.
I mean, apart from the windfall tax, what else would be done? Obviously, this energy crisis is continuing on. Is there anything different that the Labour Party would be doing to try and deal with the cost of living crisis?
Well, apart from the windfall tax, we have called for the elimination of VAT on energy bills, which is something that the Prime Minister and many people who supported Brexit said would be one of the earliest benefits of Brexit. Well, we've got Brexit now, and now they've changed their mind and they don't want to do this. So that's also something that could take money off bills. And in terms of the tax rises that are coming in now, we've also said, what is the point of being the only country in the G7 to ask working people to pay more income taxes this year, only to promise to reduce them in 2 years' time? Taxation should be about the needs of public services, not the timing of the Tory election campaign plan. And that's what the Chancellor is doing with this hokey-cokey act on income tax. So there's a number of things that could be done that would get real help to people with this cost of living crisis right now.
And just a final thought then, Pat McFadden, on the news this morning that we're reporting that 2 Brits seem to have been taken by Russian forces in Ukraine. I mean, what should be done to try and get those people back? And what message do you think there should be for any Britons who are still in Ukraine? Should they all just return home now?
Well, I understand that the Foreign Office will do everything they can for any British person captured abroad. We've seen with the visit of the UN Secretary General yesterday to Ukraine, where the Russians actually shelled the capital while he was there, the contempt that Russia is showing for the United Nations right now. We've got to stand strong against that, do what we can to help Ukraine, a country which is engaged in an existential fight for its own freedom and its right to decide its own future. And for all the divisions in politics, we are right behind all our allies in trying to do that.